Once upon a distant time, when time was not, and rivers had no names, there was a fish, born in the cascading bubbles of a rocky mountain stream. The freckled fish learned early the passion of play. He was at home in the water. Each morning he witnessed the sun lift the shadowy curtain of night. It was his daily invitation to dance in the clean waters. But if day was his time to play, then night was his time to think. The young trout, not content to know so little, kept his eyes open long after others closed theirs. What is the source of this stream? Where does it go? Why is it here? Why am I here? He pondered the questions that others never asked, and he listened at length for the answers. Then one night, he heard the roar. The night was so bright that the moon saw herself in the stream. The young trout, awake with his thoughts, recognized for the first time a noise he'd always heard. Where does this noise come from? I have to know. He swam all night without stopping, nourished by his need for knowledge. The roar grew louder. Its thunder both frightened and compelled him. When he could swim no more, weariness overcame curiosity, and he stopped and slept. Grace unmeasured, vast and free, that knew me from eternity, that turned me from my selfish pride to love the cross on which you died. In his sleep, he dreamt he was home. He dreamt he was playing again. But when he awoke, he remembered his pilgrimage. He heard the roar. It sounded near. He opened his eyes, and there it was, a wall of white foam. Water falling, then flying, then tumbling, then crashing. It was like nothing he'd ever seen. I will climb it and see it. He swam to where the water rushed into the river below. He attempted to swim upwards, but the onrush of the water was too strong. Undaunted, he swam until he could swim no more, and then he stopped and slept. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. The next day, he attempted to jump to the top. He plunged downward, deep beneath the churning foam, his fins pushing and propelling until he was swimming faster than he'd ever swum. He jumped so high into the air, he was sure he would land on the top of the waterfall, but he barely rose above the foam before he fell. Grace abounded, strong and true, that makes me long to be with you, that called me out before my birth to bring you glory on this earth. The next day, he attempted to jump again. He pushed down, out he flew, and down he tumbled. He tried again, and again, and again, ever trying to reach the top, and ever failing at his request. My grace is enough, for my power is strongest when you are weak. The sun was warm on the trout's back. In his sleep, he dreamt of the glory of leaving the mountain stream and dwelling in the waterfall. But when he awoke, he was still at the bottom. It discouraged him to realize that his dream was not a reality. He wondered if it was worth it. He wondered if those who never sought to know were happier. He considered returning. The current would carry him home. I've lived with the roar all my life and never heard it. Could I simply not hear it again? But how do you not hear the yearning of your heart? How can you turn away from discovery? How can you be satisfied with existence once you've lived with a purpose. The fish wanted nothing more than to ascend the waterfall, but he was out of choices. He didn't know what to do. Why are you so harsh? Why are you so resistant? Can't you see I can't do this on my own? I need you. My grace is all you need, for only when you are weak can everything be done completely through my power. Just then, the foaming slowed, the roar stopped, the fish looked around, the water was growing still, but then he felt the familiar push, only this time it was from behind him, and before he knew it was happening, he was elevated up the wall. Grace unending, all my days, you'll give me strength to run this race, and when my journey on earth is through, the praise will all belong to you. By now the forest was silent. The animals whispered as they witnessed the majesty. The wind ceased its stirring. The moon tilted ever so slightly in effort to not miss the miracle. All of nature watched as the fish rode the wave, and all of nature rejoiced when he reached the top. Birds danced, bears hugged, the wind whistled, and the leaves applauded. What the river's current was to the trout, Christ's empowering grace is to us. We are just as weak and powerless as the trout, but when we are weak is when we realize just how much we need God's wave of grace. The fish was where he had longed to be. He was in the presence of the roar. You have been saved by grace, through God, not by your own works. It was a gift from Jesus. What our trout couldn't do, the river had done, and he knew that he would spend